Islam, the dawn of a new faith, Part 1. The desert before the light. The story of Christianity ended with a faith spreading across the globe, transforming empires and reshaping civilizations. Yet, as history turned to a new century, the world of faith was about to witness another revolution. This time, it would rise not from the green hills of Galilee or the marble streets of Rome, but from the harsh, endless deserts of Arabia. It was the early 7th century. The Roman Empire still stood, though weakened by wars with its great rival, the Persian Sassanid Empire. Across the Mediterranean, Christianity had spread far, but divisions troubled the church. Doctrines, councils, and rival sects tore at unity. The old gods of Greece and Rome had faded, yet the human heart still sought the eternal. And in Arabia, land of shifting sands, caravan routes, and tribal loyalties, the stage was set for a new voice, a new prophet, a new chapter in the story of faith. 1. The Arabian world. Arabia was a land of contrasts. Harsh deserts stretched endlessly, broken by oases where palm trees rose like miracles. Camels, the ships of the desert, carried traders across the sands, linking Arabia to India, Africa, Byzantium, and Persia. Mecca, a bustling trading hub, was filled with merchants, travelers, and pilgrims. Religion in Arabia was a mosaic of beliefs. Tribal gods were worshipped in shrines and stones. Idols filled the Kaaba, the sacred cube in Mecca that tribes revered. Yet, beyond these polytheistic traditions, other voices echoed. Jewish communities thrived in some towns, bringing stories of Abraham, Moses, and the prophets. Christians, too, lived in Arabia, especially near the borders with Byzantium and Ethiopia, carrying tales of Jesus and the Gospels. This land was spiritually restless, a crossroads of faiths, waiting for something new to bind its people together. 2. The birth of Muhammad. In the year 570, in the city of Mecca, a child was born into the Quraysh tribe. His name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah. His father had died before his birth, and his mother would pass away when he was still a boy, leaving him orphaned. Raised first by his grandfather and then by his uncle, Abu Talib, Muhammad grew up knowing hardship, yet also learning honor, courage, and the traditions of his people. The Meccans called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy, because he was known for honesty and fairness. As a young man, he worked as a trader, leading caravans across the desert. His journeys exposed him to many cultures and ideas, from Jews and Christians to Persians or Zoroastrians. At the age of 25, Muhammad married Khadijah, a wealthy merchant widow, 15 years older than him. Their marriage was one of deep love and respect. Khadijah believed in Muhammad's integrity, and her support would prove vital in the years to come. 3. The Cave of Revelation. For years, Muhammad was troubled by the corruption and injustice he saw in Meccan society. The wealthy oppressed the poor, tribal feuds spilled blood endlessly, idolatry ruled the Kaaba, and truth seemed lost in shadows. Seeking solitude, Muhammad often retreated to the cave of Hira in the hills near Mecca to meditate and pray. One night in the year 610, everything changed. As he sat in silence, a presence filled the cave. A voice commanded, "Iqra." Read. Startled and terrified, Muhammad replied that he could not read, but the command came again, overwhelming and irresistible. This was the angel Gabriel, bringing the first words of revelation. In that moment, Muhammad became the prophet, chosen to carry a message that would transform Arabia and, in time, the entire world. Part 2. The struggles in Mecca. 4. The message begins after the night in the cave of Hira. Muhammad's life was never the same. At first, he feared he was losing his mind or being deceived. Shaken, he returned to Khadijah, who comforted him and reassured him that what he had experienced was real. She took him to her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal, a Christian scholar familiar with the scriptures. Waraka listened and declared, "This is the same spirit that came to Moses. You have been chosen as a prophet to your people." Thus began Muhammad's mission. He preached first to those closest to him, Khadijah, who became the first Muslim, his young cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib, his loyal friend Abu Bakr, and his servant Zayd ibn Haritha. Slowly, a small circle of believers formed around him. The core of his message was simple, yet revolutionary. There is only one God, Allah, creator of all. Idols and false gods are nothing. All people will face judgment for their deeds. The rich must care for the poor. Justice must prevail. Submission Islam to God brings peace. This message cut against the grain of Meccan society, which thrived on idolatry, wealth, and tribal power. 5. Opposition from the Quraysh. As Muhammad's followers grew, so did resistance. The Quraysh, guardians of the Kaaba and Mecca's trade, feared that his message threatened their power. If the idols were destroyed and only one God worshipped, the pilgrimages that enriched Mecca might end. They mocked him, calling him a poet, a madman, a liar. They pressured his uncle, Abu Talib, to silence him. But Abu Talib, though not a Muslim, stood by his nephew out of loyalty and protection. When ridicule failed, persecution began. Poor Muslims were beaten, imprisoned, even killed. One family, Yasir, Sumaya, and their son Amr, endured brutal torture. Sumaya became the first martyr of Islam, killed for refusing to renounce her faith. Muhammad himself was shielded by his status in the Quraysh tribe, but the pressure on his followers was immense. 6. The migration to Abyssinia to protect the weakest believers. Muhammad advised some Muslims to flee across the Red Sea to the Christian kingdom of Abyssinia, modern-day Ethiopia. The Christian king, known as the Negus, welcomed them. When Meccan envoys demanded their return, the Muslims recited verses from the Qur'an about Jesus and Mary. Hearing this, the Negus declared, "This and what we believe come from the same source." He refused to hand them over. Thus, Islam found its first refuge not in Arabia, but in the land of Christians. 7. The year of sorrow. The struggles grew darker. In one devastating year, Muhammad lost both his beloved wife Khadijah and his uncle Abu Talib's greatest source of love and protection. Grief weighed heavily upon him. Without Abu Talib, the Quraysh felt free to increase their persecution. Seeking hope, Muhammad traveled to the nearby city of Taif, hoping its people would accept his message. Instead, they mocked him, drove him out, and hurled stones at him until he bled. Exhausted and heartbroken, he prayed, "O Lord, to you I complain of my weakness. If you are not angry with me, I care not." It was in this lowest moment that he was lifted by visions of the miraculous night journey, Isra and Miraj, where he was said to have been carried from Mecca to Jerusalem and then ascended through the heavens, meeting earlier prophets and standing in the presence of God. This vision renewed his strength. 8. A new hope in Yathrib. Even as Mecca rejected him, new doors opened. In the oasis city of Yathrib, later known as Medina, feuding tribes longed for peace. They heard of Muhammad's wisdom and justice and invited him to mediate their conflicts. In return, many accepted Islam. At last, Muhammad had found a community ready to embrace him, not as an outcast, but as a leader. The stage was set for the most decisive chapter in Islam's rise, the Great Migration, the Hijra, which would mark the true beginning of the Muslim community. Part 3: The Hijra and the Birth of the Ummah. 9. The Great Migration. By the year 622, the situation in Mecca had become unbearable. The Quraysh escalated their persecution, plotting even to assassinate Muhammad. But the Prophet had already been preparing for a new beginning. The people of Yathrib, troubled by years of tribal wars, had invited him to serve as a mediator and leader. They pledged loyalty to him at the pledges of Aqaba, promising to defend him as they would defend their own kin. One by one, Muslims began to slip out of Mecca under the cover of night, making the dangerous journey north across the desert to Yathrib. When the Quraysh realized Muhammad himself planned to leave, they devised a plan. A group of assassins would surround his house and strike him down as he slept. But when they entered, they found only his cousin Ali lying in the bed, bravely taking his place. Muhammad, meanwhile, had already escaped with his close companion, Abu Bakr. For days, they hid in a cave on Mount Thor as Quraysh search parties hunted them. Legend tells that a spider spun its web across the cave entrance, and a dove nested nearby, making the pursuers believe no one could be inside. After days of peril, Muhammad and Abu Bakr slipped away and finally reached Yathrib. The migration known as the Hijra was so momentous that Muslims later began their calendar from this year. 10. Medina, a new beginning in Yathrib, soon renamed Medina an-Nabi, the city of the Prophet, or simply Medina. Muhammad was welcomed not only as a spiritual leader, but as a statesman and lawgiver. For the first time, Islam was not merely a faith of scattered believers, but a true community, the ummah. Muhammad drew up the Constitution of Medina, a groundbreaking document that united Muslims, Jews, and other groups under one social contract. It guaranteed religious freedom and bound all parties to mutual defense. For a tribal society used to endless blood feuds, this vision of unity was revolutionary. The Muslims built their first mosque, a simple structure of mud and palm trunks, which became the center of worship and community life. The call to prayer adhan was introduced, echoing across the oasis 5 times a day. At last, the believers had a home, a sanctuary, and a vision of society built on justice and faith. 11. Conflict with Mecca. But the Quraysh of Mecca could not ignore Muhammad's growing influence. They saw Medina as a direct threat to their power and commerce. Skirmishes soon broke out, with Meccan caravans becoming targets. In 624 came the first great test, the Battle of Badr. The victory at Badr electrified Medina, but it also deepened Meccan hostility. A year later, at the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims suffered a crushing defeat after disobeying Muhammad's orders. The Prophet himself was wounded, his followers shaken. Yet despite setbacks, the community grew stronger, learning that faith required patience as well as courage. 12. The Trench and Triumph. By 627, the Quraysh allied with other tribes and marched on Medina with an army of 10,000, outnumbered again. Muhammad employed a brilliant defensive strategy. He ordered a trench dug around the city, an unheard-of tactic in Arabia. The invaders, unable to breach it, laid siege for weeks, but were finally forced to retreat, defeated not by battle, but by endurance and unity. This event, the Battle of the Trench, marked a turning point. The Quraysh's power began to wane, while the Muslims of Medina gained strength, discipline, and confidence. 13. Toward Mecca. Despite the conflict, Muhammad longed to return to his birthplace. In 6, he and his followers set out unarmed for a pilgrimage to the Kaaba, though the Quraysh barred them. Negotiations led to the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, granting Muslims the right to return the following year. Though some followers saw the treaty as a humiliation, it proved a masterstroke of diplomacy. Peace allowed Islam to spread more rapidly than ever before. Within 2 years, thousands across Arabia embraced the faith. The once small community of outcasts was now a rising power. The day was approaching when the Prophet would walk again through the streets of Mecca, not as a persecuted preacher, but as a leader of a nation. Part 4. The Conquest of Mecca and the Prophets. Last year's 14. The road back to Mecca. By 60-30, the balance of power had shifted. The Quraysh, once dominant, now found themselves outmatched by the growing strength of Medina. When one of their allies broke the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Muhammad declared it void. He marched toward Mecca, not with a band of outcasts, but with a vast army 10,000 strong. As they approached, the city that once scorned him trembled. Yet, instead of vengeance, Muhammad chose mercy. He ordered his followers not to harm civilians, not to destroy homes, not to shed blood unnecessarily. When he entered Mecca, there was no battle, only surrender. Muhammad went directly to the Kaaba, the sacred cube at the heart of the city. Filled with idols of stone and wood, it had long been the center of polytheistic worship. The Prophet entered and smashed the idols one by one, declaring, "Truth has come, and falsehood has vanished. Verily, falsehood is bound to perish." The Kaaba was cleansed, restored to its original purpose as a sanctuary for the worship of the one God, Allah. Mecca was his again, not by force of arms, but by the force of faith. 15. Mercy in victory. For years, the Quraysh had mocked him, persecuted his followers, and driven him into exile. Now they stood at his mercy. Many expected retribution, exile, even death, but Muhammad surprised them. Standing before the people, he declared, "Go, for you are free." He forgave his enemies, choosing reconciliation over revenge. This act of mercy won hearts more powerfully than any conquest. Many who once opposed him now embraced Islam. 16. The farewell pilgrimage. In the years that followed, Islam spread rapidly across Arabia. Tribes after tribe pledged allegiance to Muhammad, uniting under the banner of one God. The fragmented land of feuding clans was becoming a single community. In 632, sensing his mission was nearly complete, Muhammad led his followers in a pilgrimage to Mecca. This journey, known as the farewell pilgrimage, became a defining moment. On the plain of Arafat, before a vast crowd, he delivered his farewell sermon. He reminded them that all Muslims were brothers and sisters, equal regardless of race or tribe. He condemned usury, upheld the rights of women, and emphasized justice, compassion, and faith. "I leave behind me 2 things, the Book of God and my example. If you hold fast to them, you will never go astray." These words echoed across the desert, seeding a vision that would carry Islam far beyond Arabia. 17. The death of the Prophet. Shortly after returning to Medina, Muhammad fell ill. For days, he suffered weakness and fever, yet continued to lead prayers when he could. Surrounded by his closest family and companions, he whispered his final words, "O Allah, the highest companion. In June 632, at the age of 62, Muhammad passed away. The man who had once feared being alone in a cave had now left behind a community of tens of thousands, bound together by faith, discipline, and love for God. Grief swept through Medina. Some refused to believe he was gone, stunned by the loss. But Abu Bakr, his closest companion, stood before the people and declared, "Whoever worshipped Muhammad, know that Muhammad is dead. But whoever worships God, God is living and never dies." It was a reminder that Islam was not about one man, but about the eternal message he carried. 18. A legacy begins with Muhammad's death. The question of leadership loomed. Abu Bakr was chosen as the first caliph, successor to the Prophet tasked with guiding the ummah. The age of the Caliphate had begun, but though the Prophet was gone, his message endured. The Qur'an, preserved by his followers, became the sacred text of Islam. His sayings and actions, the Hadith, became a guide for daily life. His example, the Sunnah, remained a model for believers. From Medina, the faith would soon surge outward, crossing deserts, mountains, and seas. Within a century, Islam would stretch from Spain to India, shaping empires, cultures, and civilizations. The Prophet had sown the seed. History would see it grow beyond imagination. Part 5. The Rise of the Caliphates and the Golden Age. 19. Abu Bakr and the First Caliphate. With the Prophet gone, the young Muslim community faced uncertainty. Tribes that had pledged allegiance to Muhammad now questioned whether their loyalty should continue. Some refused to pay the alms, zakat, while others claimed new prophets had risen among them. Abu Bakr, chosen as the first caliph, acted with firm resolve. He declared that Islam was not the faith of one man, but of God, eternal and unbroken. He launched the Rida Wars to bring rebellious tribes back into unity. His leadership, though brief only 2 years, preserved the fragile community from collapse. Before his death, Abu Bakr appointed Umar ibn al-Khattab as his successor. Umar's leadership would change Islam forever. 20. Umar and the expansion of Islam. Umar, the second caliph, was a man of fiery strength and uncompromising justice. Under his rule, Islam burst beyond the Arabian Peninsula. Armies of believers, fueled not by greed but by faith, marched against the great empires that had once seemed unshakable. In the west, they defeated the Byzantines, taking Syria and Jerusalem. In the east, they shattered the Persian Sassanid Empire, bringing Mesopotamia and Persia under Muslim rule. Yet conquest was not mere destruction. Umar established systems of governance, taxation, and justice. He protected the rights of non-Muslims, granting Jews and Christians the status of demi-protected peoples so long as they paid a tax. In Jerusalem, he refused to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, fearing Muslims might later claim it as a mosque. His humility and vision won respect even from those he conquered. When Umar was assassinated in 644, Islam had grown from a desert community into a vast empire. 21. Uthman, Ali, and division. The third Caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, expanded the empire further and is remembered for commissioning a standardized version of the Qur'an, ensuring the sacred text would remain unchanged. Yet his reign also sowed discontent. Accusations of nepotism and corruption grew, and in 656 he was assassinated by rebels. The fourth caliph, Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, faced immediate challenges. Civil war erupted, within the Muslim community itself. At the Battle of the Camel and later the Battle of Siffin, Muslims fought against Muslims for the first time. These conflicts birthed divisions that endure to this day. The split between Sunni and Shia. Sunnis upheld the authority of the caliphs chosen by consensus, while Shia Muslims believed leadership rightfully belonged to Ali and his descendants. Ali's assassination in 661 deepened the wounds, leaving Islam forever marked by both unity and division. 22. The Umayyad dynasty. After Ali's death, power shifted to the Umayyad dynasty, with its capital in Damascus. The Umayyads transformed the Caliphate into a true empire, building roads, minting coins, and governing vast territories. Their armies swept across North Africa, entered Spain, and even reached into France, where they were halted at the Battle of Tours in 732 in the east. They pushed deep into Central Asia, carrying Islam across deserts and mountains. Yet the Umayyads were also criticized for worldliness and monarchy-like rule, moving far from the Prophet's humble example. Opposition grew until in 750 the Abbasid revolution toppled them. 23. The Abbasid Golden Age. The Abbasid Caliphate, with its capital in Baghdad, ushered in a golden age of Islamic civilization. Baghdad became the jewel of the world, a city of scholars, poets, merchants, and philosophers. The Abbasids encouraged knowledge, founding the House of Wisdom, where Greek, Persian, and Indian texts were translated into Arabic. Muslim scholars preserved and expanded ancient learning, developing new sciences, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. Al-Khwarizmi pioneered algebra. Ibn Sina Avicenna wrote medical works studied in Europe for centuries. Al-Farabi and Ibn Rushd Avros explored philosophy, blending reason with faith. Astronomers charted the stars, while architects built mosques of breathtaking beauty. Islamic civilization stretched from Spain to India, linking cultures through trade, ideas, and faith. It was not only a religion, but a civilization that shaped the course of humanity. 24. Faith and culture during this age. Islamic art, literature, and spirituality flourished. Arabic poetry sang of love and devotion. Calligraphy and geometric patterns adorned mosques and palaces, reflecting the belief that beauty itself was an expression of God's order. Sufi mystics, seeking a direct experience of the divine, spread Islam's spiritual depth through poetry, music, and teaching. Figures like Rumi, the Persian poet, would inspire not only Muslims but seekers of truth across all cultures. The message of Islam's admission to God, unity of humanity, balance between justice and mercy, resonated far beyond Arabia. Part the Sixth Crusades, Decline and Transformation. 25. The Crusades begin by the 11th century. The Islamic world stretched from Spain to India, a realm of immense power and culture. Yet within this vastness lay divisions: Sunni against Shia, rival dynasties vying for control. In 1095, a new storm gathered from the west. Pope Urban II called upon the Knights of Europe to march east and reclaim Jerusalem, the city sacred to Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike. Thus began the Crusades. In 1099, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem in a wave of bloodshed, massacring Muslim and Jewish inhabitants alike. For Muslims, it was a wound both physical and spiritual, the loss of a holy city, the violation of sacred ground. But from this suffering would rise leaders who rekindled Muslim unity. 26. Salah al-Din, the noble warrior in the 12th century. A Kurdish general named Salah al-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, known in the West as Saladin, merged as a unifying force. He reclaimed lands from the Crusaders, but more than his victories, it was his character that won admiration. Saladin embodied chivalry, mercy, and faith. When he recaptured Jerusalem in 1187 after the Battle of Hattin, there was no massacre. Instead, he granted safe passage to Christians and spared lives. Even his enemies respected him as a noble warrior. His example reminded the Muslim world that strength lay not only in arms, but in justice and honor. 27. Mongol storm, yet even greater trials awaited. In the 13th century, the Mongols, fierce horsemen from the steppes of Asia, swept across the Islamic world. Cities fell, one after another: Bukhara, Samarkand, Baghdad. In 1258, Baghdad, jewel of the Abbasids, was sacked in a catastrophe that shocked the world. Libraries burned, scholars perished, and the Tigris River was said to run black with ink and red with blood. It seemed as if Islamic civilization itself might vanish under the hooves of the Mongol horde. But history turned again. Many Mongols, once destroyers, embraced Islam. They brought with them new strength, blending steppe traditions with Islamic faith. What had nearly destroyed Islam now became part of its renewal. 28. Ottomans and a new age. In the centuries that followed, new powers rose. The Ottoman Empire, founded by Turkish warriors in Anatolia, grew into the most powerful Islamic state of the early modern era. In 1453, under Mehmed the Conqueror, they captured Constantinople, ending the Byzantine Empire and transforming the city into Istanbul. The Ottomans built mosques of soaring beauty, established law and order, and became guardians of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. For centuries, they stood as both sword and shield of the Muslim world, stretching across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Alongside them, other great Islamic empires flourished: the Safavids in Persia and the Mughals in India, who left behind wonders like the Taj Mahal. Islam was no longer just a religion of Arabia, but a global force woven into the destiny of nations and cultures. 29. Science, decline, and encounter with the West. Even as empires flourished, challenges grew. Some Islamic states clung to power while losing the spirit of innovation that once defined the Abbasid Golden Age. European powers advanced in science, exploration, and technology, beginning the age of discovery and the rise of colonialism. Muslim lands, once centers of learning, found themselves increasingly vulnerable to Western domination. The 18th and 19th centuries saw European colonization of vast Islamic regions from North Africa to India. For Muslims, this was both crisis and crossroads. How could Islam remain true to its heritage while facing modernity, science, and the growing power of the West? Thinkers, reformers, and mystics wrestled with these questions, shaping the path toward the modern era. 30. The resilience of faith. Despite wars, crusades, invasions, and decline, Islam endured. The Qur'an remained unchanged. The call to prayer still echoed across cities and deserts. And the ummah, diverse, scattered, yet united, continued its journey. The story of Islam had begun in the cave of Hira, in the heart of one man. Now it stretched across continents, surviving triumph and tragedy alike. And though the political fortunes of empires would rise and fall, the faith remained a living force, ready to adapt, renew, and inspire. Epilogue. Faith across the ages. The story of Islam is a tale of light born in the desert, carried on the winds of conquest, nurtured in the halls of learning, and tempered in the fires of struggle. From the prophet's cave in Mecca to the palaces of Baghdad, from the walls of Jerusalem to the domes of Istanbul, it is the story of a faith that shaped civilizations. But Islam's journey is not only one of armies and empires, it is also the journey of the heart, of prayer whispered at dawn, of the Qur'an recited in quiet devotion, of families fasting together beneath the crescent moon of Ramadan. It is the resilience of a people who endured crusades, invasions, and colonial rule, yet never lost their faith in God. As the centuries passed, the Islamic world stood at a crossroads. To the west, another civilization was rising from the ashes of its own dark ages. A civilization that would challenge Islam not only with the sword, but with science, philosophy, and exploration. Europe was awakening, and with it came both conflict and connection. This is where the story turns again. The next chapter in our journey will not only tell of kings and conquerors, but of ideas of how faith and reason, tradition and discovery collided to shape the modern world. Teaser for next story: from the dusty battlefields of the Crusades to the marble halls of Renaissance Florence, a new age was dawning. It was an age of curiosity, invention, and ambition. The story of the West, the rise of science, philosophy, and discovery, was about to unfold. And in its shadows and its brilliance, the destiny of all faiths would be tested.